The first time I saw the cat, he was sitting on my front step. Not near my front step, on it, right in the middle, like he'd been waiting for me to come home. He was a big ginger thing with a torn left ear and the kind of face that suggested he'd already had a long day, despite it only being 3 in the afternoon. "Hello," I said. He stared at me. "Can I help you?" Nothing. I stepped around him, unlocked the door, and went inside. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The next morning, he was back. Same step, same position, same mildly disappointed expression. "You don't live here," I told him. He blinked. "I'm serious." Another blink. Then I left for work. When I came home, he was gone. "Good," I said to nobody. Then I opened the front door and found him sitting in my hallway, and I froze. He stared at me. "How did you get in?" He just yawned. I checked the windows, but they were closed. The back door, it was locked. There was absolutely no reasonable way for a large ginger cat to have entered my house. And yet, there he was. I picked him up. He allowed this, although his expression made it clear that he was allowing me rather than the other way around. I carried him outside and placed him on the step. "There," I said. He immediately walked back inside. "No." He kept walking. I picked him up again. "Outside." He came back in. "Outside." Back in. By the 4th attempt, I realized I was arguing with an animal that routinely licked its own backside and somehow losing. "Fine." The cat sat down. "But you're not staying." He stayed. I called him George. Not because he looked like a George. I just needed something to yell when he knocked things off shelves. "George!" Crash. "George!" Another crash. "George, there is literally nothing left up there." George checked. There was a pen. Crash. George wasn't particularly affectionate. He didn't sit on my lap. He didn't sleep on my bed. He didn't greet me when I came home. But he followed me everywhere. If I cooked, George sat in the kitchen. If I watched television, George sat at the other end of the couch. If I went to the bathroom, a ginger paw appeared underneath the door approximately 12 seconds later. Apparently privacy was no longer included with the house. Every night at exactly 11, George disappeared. I never saw him leave. I'd be brushing my teeth or watching TV or scrolling through my phone. Then I'd look around, no George. But by morning, he'd be back on the front step. I assumed he had another family. Honestly, I was slightly offended. I bought his food. I cleaned up his hair. I've spent $78 at the vet after he ate half a shoelace. And every night he apparently went home to somebody else. One Saturday morning, I decided to find out where. George left at 11, and I followed him. Yes, I followed a cat through the neighborhood at 11 o'clock at night. There are moments in life when you realize you've made some questionable choices. Following a ginger cat while hiding behind someone's recycling bin is one of them. George walked 3 streets over. Then he stopped outside a little blue house. Aha! I knew it! Double life. George squeezed underneath the gate. I walked up to the front door and knocked, and a woman answered. She was probably in her 70s, wearing a dressing gown and holding a cup of tea. "Sorry to bother you," I said. "This is going to sound strange, but I think we share a cat." She looked at me for a moment, then she smiled. "George?" I stared at her. "You call him George too?" "No," she stepped aside. "George was my husband." Now I was completely lost. The cat appeared behind her. He walked into the living room and jumped up onto an old armchair beside the window. The woman followed him. "That was George's chair," she said. The cat curled into a ball. "He started coming here a few months after my husband died. First time he showed up, he walked straight past me and sat there." "Oh, I don't know where he came from." I looked at the cat. "So he's not yours?" "No." "He's not mine either." The woman laughed. George opened one eye. "Apparently," she said, "George disagrees." After that, we stopped trying to work out who owned him. During the day, he lived with me. At 11 every night, he went to her house and slept in George's chair. At 7 every morning, he came back. This went on for 3 years. Then one morning, he didn't come home. At 8, I told myself he was late. At 9, I walked to the blue house. The woman opened the door before I knocked. I was just coming to see you. George hadn't been here either. We searched everywhere. We walked the streets calling him. We knocked on doors. I posted his picture online, but nothing. 3 days passed, then 4. By the end of the week, I'd stopped putting food in his bowl. I didn't throw it away. I just couldn't keep looking at it. On the 8th morning, somebody knocked on my door. It was the woman, and she was crying. For a second, I thought she'd found him. She held something out. A photograph. It showed her husband sitting in the old armchair. George. The human George. And on his lap was a tiny ginger kitten. My stomach dropped. "That's him!" She nodded. "I found it last night. But you said he came after your husband died." "I thought he did." She turned the photograph over. Written on the back was a date from 14 years earlier, and underneath it, in faded blue ink, were 4 words. George and his little mate. Neither of us spoke for a while. Eventually I asked, "What happened to the kitten?" She wiped her eyes. "I don't know. George found him outside, fed him for a while, then one day he disappeared." I looked at the photograph again. Same torn left ear, same unimpressed face, same cat. The woman smiled. "I suppose he came back." George never returned to my front step. We never found out what happened to him. But every Sunday, I still visit the little blue house. We drink tea and we talk about George, both of them. And there's still an old armchair beside the window that neither of us has ever been able to bring ourselves to move. Although occasionally when we're sitting in the kitchen talking, we'll hear something from the living room. A soft thump, the creak of an old chair. Once, we even found ginger hair on the cushion. But that's ridiculous, obviously. Because cats can't just appear inside locked houses, can they?